r/NoSleep. Posted by u/a_stony_shore. If you are new to this story, I recommend you to start from beginning, links in description. The 12 Rules. Part 7. Rule 7, stay away from the Desert Tortoise. Why? I asked Sarah, as her eyes focused on the tank trail we were traveling. She sighed and rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, lighten up. I knew you were going to be fine. She briefly put her hand on my shoulder. Don't let it bruise your ego, bud. I bet on you, not against you. You could have at least told me about Chris. I muttered. She paused, at a loss. I thought you knew. There's so much odd stuff around here, it's hard to make sure you know everything. Simple miscommunication. I'm an immortal, not a mind reader. She winced at the last comment. Speaking of, I started. The suit. He was able to hear my thoughts. Sarah grew quiet. Yes. You know a bit about him, don't you? Yes. And? Rook, look, there's a lot of odd stuff that goes on here, clearly. The suit keeps a lid on it, or rather he steps in from time to time to make sure the lid is still secure before going on about whatever his business is. Command is complicit in it because of what the suit can do for them, and the suit uses us all as expendable assets in keeping some of this stuff bottled up and off the radar. If any of this were to get out and someone were to study it, especially the aperture, he might be threatened. He can't have that. She sighed. Listen, I like you. I don't want you to get hurt, but you have to know by now that working here is dangerous for any number of reasons. I won't use kid gloves with you. You should get out of here if he'll let it. I know, but it's more complicated than that. I kind of enjoy the excitement. So you did have fun. Her sentence broke off as she slammed the brakes. My head jerked forward, then slammed into the headrest. I winced, caressing my neck, and looked forward. There stood before us was a solitary desert tortoise, slowly lumbering across the road. Sarah laughed. Oh, that was close. Don't be such a baby. You know, speaking of me being a shitty communicator, do you know why these things are protected? Yay, they're endangered or something. The EPA would be all over our ass if we so much as touch them. Nope. Wrong. About the first part. Or I mean, that's the cover, anyway. You know, it's probably better if you assume everything is some sort of cover-up even if it's not. Like gun safety, just always assume the gun's loaded. Just assume your coworkers are bloodthirsty vampires or extra-dimensional MacGuffins. She smiled. Hey, can you call it into range control? And while we wait for the environmental guys to get here, buckle up, story time. I'm already buckled. Shut up, Rook. Almost 100 years before this base was established, there were a number of native tribes in the area whom are now all long gone. The first fort established in the area, not too far from the current cantonment area, was built to patrol for horse thieves and housed a company of cavalry as well as accompanying auxiliaries. The first year passed without incident. The garrison was kept busy improving the fortifications, building relations with the local natives and trappers, and acclimating to the region. The commander of the garrison noted a superstitious warning conveyed to him through both the native tribes and the trappers. Getting agreement on local lore from both groups was an oddity, but the message was clear: avoid the desert tortoises at all costs, or else. The or else came in the form of ominous allegories of pestilence and death. The commander recorded it in his log, which is how I came by it. He heeded to those warnings as well for a time because he noted other oddities in the area. These included brief mentions of spirits, walking faceless corpses, and a mysterious apparition which caused the sky to redden and the land to change. In the second year the garrison grew more comfortable in their duties despite the oddities, but they began to make mistakes. They alienated the tribes. Their commander expressed concern in the behavior of the troops and general malaise of the garrison, but seemed unable to assuage their discontent. The last time the garrison was seen was by a logistics convoy who had been tasked with the monthly resupply. The convoy executive officer, XO, noted in his journal that the garrison was more beleaguered than the dispatches report. What did they do? Right or wrong, justifiable or unjustifiable, which I need not discuss today. For 1 long year these civilized men engaged in killing. The convoy XO's journal was curious insofar as it mentioned something not even hinted at in the garrison commander's log. This indicated a darker second year than the garrison commander would admit to. Looking back, it was clear that he used code for multiple incidences that could have been murders, theft or worse. As the supply convoy left the fort once more, the garrison was well provisioned and in good spirits, in part, the convoy XO was sure, to the casks of rum which were accidentally included in the manifest. The commander's own log noted, ... and the men are renewed in spirit, and so I shall retire to my quarters, careful to overlook their pungent libations. The following month, when the supply convoy arrived, they found an abandoned fort whose palisades had been turned out. Within the fort, the commander's log was found among the destruction of his billet. The door had been torn from its hinges, and charred stretches of timber indicated someone had attempted to burn the building down. The men of the convoy quickly concluded that the garrison had come under attack from the natives. The discarded weapons and ample bullet holes seemed to indicate a furious battle of some sort. There was evidence of rifle fire from within the fort going in multiple directions. It was total confusion. Some bloodstains remained, but whatever had once rested on the ground had been consumed by scavengers. The men of the convoy began a wide-ranging search, but it didn't take them long to find dozens of tracks leading away from the fort into the desert. A scouting party found the first corpse. It was naked and partially eaten by carrion feeders. Little could be discerned from the corpse other than it was a white male. They continued on, and coming to a ravine found 3 more bodies, broken and tangled in an inaccessible crevice, equally ill-dressed for the climate. They continued and found collapsed forms in various states of decay laying in the desert, but they also found one who had climbed up on top of a cactus to die. Another who had obviously used a stone to smash the skull of his compatriot not 10 feet away before turning the stone on himself. It made no sense. At the end of the trail of death, the scouts came across a couple men from a local tribe. They stared out across the valley at a distant structure. They didn't react to the scouts. They didn't seem concerned that they might be found responsible for the deaths of so many. For a time, the scouts and the natives both stared at the grotesque structure. The poor wretches from the garrison had clambered atop one another to form a massive pyramid in their deaths, with one quavering stalk emerging from the center. As one of the scouts begged their horse onwards, the older of the 2 natives spoke. "No. Do not approach. If you don't want to end up like them, stay away. Don't hunt the tortoise or it will drive you mad." Their commander didn't listen, and so he brought the pestilence with him. It afflicted all of his men. The scouts acquiesced and turned back, careful to avoid the bodies they saw on the way. In the end, they quietly reported that a rare sickness had killed the entire garrison. They returned the notebook and burned the fort to the ground. The last entry in the commander's notebook read, "So I, in my frustrations with the dreadful mysteries of this land, lashed out. I took to the desert and shot a tortoise, intending to eat it to curse the land. I was too close. As the bullet penetrated its shell, a black cloud erupted and showered me in a filth I cannot describe. It ate into my pores and scarred me. Now I change. I've secured the door to protect the men, but I can hear them inside my mind growing louder, beckoning me to pilgrimage to somewhere I cannot describe. But they sing to me, they scream at me. Those faceless ones. So, don't mess with the tortoises." Sarah finished. "What, are they some sort of interdimensional, all-knowing, hypno-tortoises or something? Or aliens?" Sarah looked at me cockeyed, then smiled and mimed that ancient aliens guy. "Smartass. We could say, perhaps, that they are part of a more complex ecosystem than we understand. I mean, I'm not saying what the disease is, I'm just saying, don't mess with the damn things and everything will be fine, okay?" We watched it continue its slow journey off into the desert. I checked my watch. We have to keep our eyes on it until the environmental folks get here, huh?" I asked. "Yup." An uncomfortable silence followed. "So, what would happen if you messed with one of them?" She paused a moment, brow furrowed. "You know, I'm not sure. Can you imagine if I contracted it, then went mad from it but couldn't die, and was some sort of unkillable monster?" She shuddered. I smiled back at her. "Are you not?"